Ma'av, World, Woman Festivals, Ahadu, Amlak, Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God, Amen. Good evening, clergymen, brothers, sisters, and young adults, in the name of our Lord, Jesus Christos, and with the love of his mother, Kristos the Lord. My name is Welde Amanu'el. I am a serving member of St. Mary of Tserha, Tsion, for the last 32 years. I know that it's a long time, but it just seems like a few days ago. But of course, the grayness doesn't reflect that. But my longest service within the church has been within the church's finances, starting around about 2007 up until the present time, some 13 years later. A proposal was put to me, would I be like to host the first talk show, first of its kind in our community. I did think long and hard about it, but I took up the offer with a sense of honor and duty to serve our church. Now that's enough about me. So now onto the format of the show. The talk show will be every Friday evening, once fortnightly. It will start at 7 p.m. and it will run for 45 minutes on YouTube. During the first segment, I will be inviting my guest to share his memories of his life journey and how he found his way into the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. And the second part of the show, I will invite my guest to share 3 photographs from his personal archive and to explain the reasons behind why he selected them. And by the way, please don't forget to click on the like button and subscribe before the end of the program. Now, my first guest for this talk show happens to be my godfather, and is a foundation member of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church in London. He's a married man with 5 children, 14 grandchildren. He was born in Jamaica, and at a tender age of 7, he traveled to London, England. He went through the educational system, having chosen a career as a paint and decorator, and some years later became a shop steward. Later on in his life, my guest studied social science as an undergraduate with the South Bank University. He graduated with honors degree in Bachelor of Science. As a young man in the mid-70s, he took up the Rastafari movement, maybe the belief too. And towards the mid-70s, he found the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, St. Mary of Zion, and he was baptized in 1977. And soon after, he was appointed as a lay preacher. He's been involved with the church's administration ever since being set up as a trustee in 1981. And he's one of the original trustees that is still active within the church. Now, some of you may have already worked out who my guest is, but if not, listen on. And so, 44 years later, it's a privilege and an honor to start the show with none other than the man who is known to some as Amde Mariam. His parents named him Reginald Henry. Welcome to my talk show, Amde Mariam.
Thank you very much for having me on your talk show. It is indeed an honor and a privilege, as ever, to be serving our mother, Kristos the Mariam, and her church. Thank you.
So tell me, tell my listeners, Amde, your memories of your journey as a 7-year-old leaving Jamaica and arriving in London, England back in the 60s.
Yes. Before I actually get into that, I'd just like to just say that being born in Anata Bay in the parish of St. Mary in Jamaica, which for me is very significant because I was born in St. Mary in Jamaica. I was born in St. Mary here in London. But I'm part of that sort of Windrush generation in that my parents actually came here in the middle 50s. My father first came in 1956 when I was about 2. Then a year later, my mother followed. So I grew up in Anata Bay with my grandmother, which it was a very idyllic childhood growing up there in by the seaside, you know, in the country. And I was a sort of rebellious child, so I was always in the bush, in the wood, shooting the little birds with my slingshot and so forth, you know. But coming here, I traveled on the BOAC aeroplane with an elder cousin of mine who was some 10, 12 years older than me. And I cried and cried, you know, and I tell people even now, I cried then, I've been crying all my life because to me, Britain, England is not our home. You know, I just like the natural surroundings of the bush, the fresh food, you know, and so forth. Yeah. But then when I arrived at Gatwick Airport and I was met by this woman who to me was a stranger, and she said, "Why, you know me?" And I shook my head and I was pointing back to Jamaica, you know. And she said, "Why, me are your mother?" And I was saying, no, you know, that as far as I was concerned, my grandmother was my mother. You know, I think my mum actually took that to heart, not knowing that we'd been separated for 4 years, and basically she was more or less a stranger to me, you know. And then it was the cold also, because I think it was like winter time, and you know, being dressed, we were dressed for summer. And you know, I've never really gotten used to the cold. People say, "Oh, you get used to the cold," but you have to remember back in the 60s, winters were really winters in this country. Because I remember in '63, the River Thames froze over. You could, you know, could go skiing along there, you know. So yeah, and then it was the sort of, then I met, because my parents had my sister who had met for the first time, and you know, the whole place was, it was just all strange. And um, as you know, back in those days, you're probably aware, there was no, you couldn't get a flat or anything, or hardly get a room, because there was those signs up saying outside people's houses, you know, no Irish, no blacks, and no dogs. And so the houses, it was all multiple occupation or occupancy, where you had like 3 families sharing one house. So there was continuous problems. Is who use my part, who, you know? So and that was in that the first place that my parents were living, or we were living, was in Brixton Hill. So I remember going to a school there and just staring out the window. And then soon we moved from Brixton down to Battersea, to Warriner Gardens, That's just behind Battersea Park, by the Prince of Wales Drive. I mean, you couldn't afford to live down there now, but we had a basement sort of flat, you know, and it was really sort of grubby, because I remember you see snail print in the morning, you know. But luckily, the school that I attended there, the fence was in the back garden. So me, as I say, being a rebellious and adventurous boy, I just climb over the fence when it was time to go to school.
I
And
see.
yeah, and Battersea was like, there was some, because remember the war had not too long finished, so it was like certain parts were like slum areas, and they were going to build them up. So we had to move from there. So
Sorry to interrupt you, Amde. So we're sort of focusing on your early days as a young person, a child,
yes,
and so it seems that you've moved around quite a bit. But I do have other questions that will relate
okay,
to the different stages of your journey.
right.
But that's an interesting journey, and I'm sure quite a lot of our audience can relate to that. Yeah. Thanks for that one. Moving on to the next question. Going through the educational system, was there a teacher who spotted your talents, or what career advice did you find useful?
No, because again, we're going back to the education in the 60s. I think it was a lot different to what it was now. And for us as immigrants, black immigrants in the diaspora, it was more of a brainwash education, you know, and there was a lot of overt racism at that time. Because I remember my woodwork teacher at my secondary school in Battersea, you know, you know, because I was always a bit of a joker, and he said, like, Henry, you know, why don't you go back to Africa and swing in the trees? You know, so basically we were being taught more or less to hate each other, and because I say being a joker, and I used to take the mickey out of my West African people, because I could do the lingo and this and that, and so there was no because I said my education proper didn't really begin until I was about say probably 9, when we moved from Battersea to Clapham Common. You know, we were more settled. I mean, when I joined that primary school, would you believe it? It was me and my sister. I took my younger sister along to register at the school. Could you imagine doing that nowadays? You know, they're called social services on you. So, yeah, there was no real kind of, I can say, any inspirational teachers or that. And that was also the time when corporal punishment was in school. We used to get the cane, you know, for the least little things. And I mean, I used to get the cane quite a lot, you know. So as I say, my education proper didn't begin, and then I left school in inverted commas, you know, about 15, you know, with no qualifications or anything, because then your parents, working class parents, said, "Why you just leave school, get a job, you know, in a laundry or whatever, you know." But I think the one thing I was good at was art. I was good at drawing. My mother used to say, the boy can draw, you see. But there was no direction to say, well, you could go on to college and learn art. And I think that's one of the reasons why I got into painting and decorating, because it's a bit sort of artistic,
It
but
sounds
then,
like the educational system, as we know. I mean, our listeners, I'm sure, will relate to that, especially back in the early days. And it was more like the school was actually containing the students rather than wanting to educate them.
yes,
And if there is some education, it's sort of substandard. It's not with high esteem, but
right.
rather to make you feel as if, well, what are you doing here? Yeah, I can understand that, and I'm sure my listeners will relate to that.
Yeah, very true. Because if you didn't do the 11 plus, which I don't remember nobody talking about the 11 plus, but those who went on to do that and go on to grammar school, but we were just like a secondary modern school. So you were more directed towards a trade. They didn't look for you to achieve anything academically. Yeah. Well, as I said,
Right.
but then, one of the best advice my late father gave me was when he said, "Why, we're not joining the council, Lambeth Council," because he was a treasurer for the local union branch, and it was going on Lambeth, which opened up a lot of opportunities. Although I was in the Directorate of Construction Services, what I did, I said, well, this time I was in the church and I wanted to advance myself,
Well, in actual fact, we will be coming on to your kind of painting and decorating a career shortly. Yeah, so that is a very interesting point that you've raised there.
Yes.
Just moving on, though, could you tell us, I know you mentioned a little bit about your parents, but could you tell our listeners a bit more about your parents? So, for example, their names, are they still alive? What influence did they have on your journey into adulthood?
Well, yeah, my father, I said he died in 97 in Jamaica. I went out there to bury him. But he was a happy-go-lucky, eat, drink, and be merry sort of father. So he really did have no input to sit down with me or talk to me. But on reflection, because his parents died when he was quite young, and it was one of his elder sisters who helped to bring him up. So I think he didn't know how to really socialize with me and communicate. And them days, again, it was children should be seen and not heard. So again, I think in most households at the time, it was the mother who wore both the trousers and did all the disciplining and everything. And she had more of an influence on me in that she wasn't a Christian as such, but I remember hearing her praying, saying the Lord is my shepherd and that. And she always talk about God, So I mean, when I actually became a lay preacher in church, she took credit for that, saying, yes, we read from when the boy, I mean, I have the boy to read from Genesis to Revelation, So, yeah, so I mean, yeah, I think that my belief, I've always had a belief in God, even as a small child. And I believe that belief was instilled in me from my grandmother. Although, again, I can't remember, I think she was a Baptist, and I don't remember going to church with her. I remember the only time I remember going to church with her was at a funeral. We see a dead body in the coffin. But I think she instilled some kind of belief, because I remember I used to always say my prayers before I went to bed, and I remember when Dr. Martin Luther King and President Kennedy was assassinated, lying on my bed thinking, what a waste of life. There must be more to life. That these great men cannot just die and be extinguished like that. So I think, you know, and then I say on a Sunday in our household, and a lot of them, it was, Sunday was like the Jim Reeves kind of gospel music and that sort of thing. And oh yeah, and I just remembered, and I remember joining the Boys Brigade briefly, because they used to march around on a Sunday, and their nice uniform and that. I remember I joined briefly, and they gave me a trumpet which I couldn't play. So yeah, so my parents, you know, I think the main influence was probably my grandmother, because I said, don't forget, I spent 4 years growing up with her, and you know, so yeah.
Thank
But
you.
my mum, well, a lot of the older members remember my mum, because she used to come to church regularly when our church was at Clapham North, and she was literally on the verge of getting baptized, because if you remember, my sister and niece got baptized, and she said, "Weird, I only been left now to get baptized," you know. So, yeah.
Did you say that your mother is still alive, or?
Yeah, she's still alive. She's 92 now. God bless her soul.
Okay,
You know,
that's very
so,
good.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can relate to, again, and I hope some of my listeners will probably be aware. I know that we're having probably a mixed audience, and some of the younger adults will probably find that this is an interesting journey, and every person in life will be making their life's journey. I can also relate to the being a part of the Boys Brigade, because I myself I was in one too for many years. So, you know, some of the life's journey we can share together and experience. Thanks for that. I'm just moving on to another question. Now, this is relating to your profession, your trade. I know you touched on it slightly, but if you could say a little bit more on that for our listeners. So, how did you get into painting and decorating, and how did the shop steward role come about? And do you have any fond memories? After all these years, you're still, I believe, doing some of that painting and decorating. Could you enlighten us, please?
Yes. It was, yes, I did. It was a government training scheme. I did an apprenticeship in the early 70s, and qualified as a painter and decorator in 73, 74, and was working for contractors when my father suggested I join the council, and you know, which I did, specializing in more old age pensioners' debt, the internal, doing the paper hanging, and so on. And then, you know, with the council having equal opportunities policy, there was opportunity to become a shop steward, which I did, and became a senior shop steward. We used to have meetings with even the council leaders and so forth. And it was going on shop steward's course at South Bank University. And, you know, I thought, oh, I wouldn't mind, you know, doing a degree. But I should say, prior to that, I did some O levels, because our dear brother, Tserha Mariam, you know, he was saying, you know, that I think he went back to college and this and that, and did, you know, some O levels, and you know, I did the same, and I said at the uni, I said, yeah, I think I could probably do a degree. I'd like to do that, with the view of going on to social services, you see. So that's when I did the BSc Social Science Honours degree. And then I moved on to social services in elderly care. But the thing is, again, I use their own equal opportunities policy because to apply for the course. Yeah, because the director said to me, "What you to do that? That's nothing to do with building," So he refused. But because we had our race relations head of race relations, his name slipped me. Is this well-known black man? So I went to see him and I said, "Look, I've been accepted on the course, and they don't want." I think it was Seeley was his name. Yeah. And he said to me, "What? They don't want to let you do the course?" And him write a letter to the director, and to the director said, "Yes, Mr. Henry, you can go and do the course." So they paid for the course, provided me with all the books that I needed, and so on. But again, it was through the grace of God, because I felt being Orthodox Christian, I'd be better served in elderly care, doing things that are helping the people rather than painting and decorating. But as you know, I've changed careers several times. So when I was made redundant from Lambeth Council after nearly 18 years, it was then that me and another of my godson, you remember Welde Amanu'el, we opened up the Caribbean takeaway on Seven Sisters Road. And then after that, we had the family greengrocery shop up Carl Shulton near St. Helier Hospital on Rive Lane. So, but the painting has been, and decorate has been like the fallback. It's always been the fallback. It's once you've got a trade, because once we sold the greengrocery shop, my intention was to get back into business, but that never happened. And as you know, everything is by the will of our Lord. So, but I still have ambitions to be involved in certain business. And for the church, because a lot of this what I've done is with our church in mind, is to build up the profile, if you like, the economic prosperity of the church, to sort of be an example, to say, come on, we can do this. Because I know God has sent St. Mary here for a purpose, as in to gather his children and to unite us as a people, as a community. As you know, I've always said the church, we should become, like the Jews, the Muslims. So we're a strong community. So it doesn't matter wherever you are from or go in the world. Once you go to the church is there as your sort of mother, and father to help and assist us. Sorry, I forgot. You said about the fond memories.
Yeah, is there any fond memories that you really look back on and take pleasure from in regards to your career?
Oh yeah, there's I mean, as I said, there's a lot of memories. I mean, it was
bearing in mind, you see, I have a few more questions to go.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And if
I think
you select too much, we won't have time to get
No,
through it.
yeah, it would be too many to really think of. But I remember as a shop steward, is that I got things changed in Lambeth, in that, because Lambeth used to do like a circular of vacancies, but the vacancies up in management and so on, or the white collar jobs, they used to get London weighted. So I noticed that. I'm saying, weird. How them I get London weighting and we now get none, and we all work for Lambert. So I pushed that and raised that, and lo and behold, we all start receiving London waiting, and they stop sending around that circular. So there's a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that actually worked out financially.
Yes.
Kind of a bonus after all this time, huh?
Yes, it did. Totally. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that one. Now, I did mention you've got 5 children and 14 grandchildren.
Yes.
Are you able to tell our guests their names? It's quite a lot there.
Well, the grandchildren's, because we've got 3 boys and 2 girls. So so the grandchildren sort of be popping up all the time, and some are out in the country, so I can't tell you all their names. So I have to ask my wife to keep count of them, especially I say the ones that are out in the country, But I think it's a blessing, It's that God has blessed the fruit of our womb, and I'm looking forward to where God say you see your children's children and grandchildren to live to a ripe old age, and as ever, is to bring them all into the church, because the majority of them are baptized, and yeah, so.
Looks like you've got a lot of evangelism work to do on your hands.
I've never stopped. This is the thing, because as you know, I'm the chairman of the Evangelism committee, and evangelism never stopped. I think because nearly every person I meet, they know about the church. I think they get fed up of me talking about the church, but it's such a wonderful. It's just a wonderful faith, you know what I mean? Which, as I go back to brainwashing education, don't forget we were never taught about the church. This is it, we've talked about Roman Catholicism and all of this, but nothing about the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. And I'm one of those, because as I said, at my school, we was given a lot of negative teachings about Africa. I told you about the racism and so on. And they would teach us that Africa is the dark continent full of cannibals and this and that. So when I started to get conscious and I realized, hey, they're talking about me. You know what I mean? It's, so I left school. I had this proverbial chip on my shoulder, So when I started getting conscious, listening to Bob Marley's lyrics and Curtis Mayfield, and, realizing that we've got this wonderful and most glorious history, So that's why when I came to the church, I think you're going to touch on that as a question.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Yes, you're right.
So yeah.
Okay, then, Amde, thank you for that. Now, I think this question is probably going to be one that's going to require a lot of soul searching, and how it greatly influenced your journey, because religion does play a major part. So, when did you realize that you was probably a religious person, and how and when did you take up the Rastafarian movement? And was you a strong believer?
Yeah.
In that movement?
Well, as I said, I had always had this belief in God. Yeah. And as I said, saying my prayers, even when I went astray and had a misspent youth and that, I was still getting home somewhere from parties and clubs and saying my prayers, So I think that was one of my saving graces, because really, I think me being in the church is a miracle, in that there's on a few occasions where I could have actually died, you know. So, but as I say, it was getting conscious, starting through, mostly through listening to Bob Marley's music, because I was one of his greatest fans. I had all these albums up until Natty Dread, and listening to the lyrics. And I remember even saying to my mum when I was living there, oh, mum, mommy, Mr. Stop eat pork. And she said, she'll laugh, you know. But then it was, because because I'd been a rude boy as well. And it's like God, he put the locks on my head. It wasn't a conscious decision to put on locks, because I remember I had my hair in plaits, and I had to do something quickly, and I started undoing them. And I was gonna, I said, "Chum now about to comb them out." But I think it was God, because God, he knew my sort of understanding of Rasta was that a Rasta man is a righteous man, God-fearing man, a pillar of the community. So he knew, because I'd sort of broken all these commandments, nearly all these commandments, that with him putting the locks on my head, I would knuckle down and follow his commandments. And I'd more or less given myself to him, repenting and so forth. So, you know, and then a sister-in, it was her baby father. Me and him was reasoning, and he said to me, if I knew there was an Ethiopian Orthodox church, I said, what are you talking about? Because for me, I rejected all forms of Western Christianity, you see, because of what was happening in Northern Ireland with the IRA and the Protestants killing each other. I'm saying, wait, but you're supposed to be Christians. How can you be killing each other? You know? So when he told me, I said, weird, this is a revelation. So anyway, he invited me to church in summer of 76. So I was about 21, 22. I was, you know, I had all my ites, gold and green, my my junk army greens, and, you know. But then when I went into the church, and it was like going into the house of dread, because everybody was locked except Abba, you know. But Abba, he was doing Adu and the altar, and you know what? It was that eureka moment. This is what I'd been searching for all my life, and I didn't know. And it was from that day on, I didn't miss church for years. I was there every Sunday, Bible class, and then you see Bible class, that was at Denby Road in Notting Hill where the church was. But the Bible class, or the sacramental class, was held on Portobello Road above a shop. I think that was the Rasta headquarters of Local 33, where our late father, God rest his soul, Malaka Tesfa, used to take the class, him and Amde, Brother Larry. I mean, I've still got my notebooks from that time, you know. So, but the thing is, I didn't believe that Haile Selassie was God. But all the dreads I was moving around, you know, when the culture used to go around and everybody, Jah Rastafari Selassie, and they noticed that I wasn't saying that. They said, what happened, you don't believe Selassie are God? And I said to them, no, I don't believe Selassie. But I just accepted the sort of philosophy of Rasta, you know, black love, unity, repatriation, and that, you know. So when I think it was one Bible class, I went to ask Abba if I could come and see him. That's Abba Arigawi, who later became Abuna Johannes, and I went to see him at we're staying in this Rasta Elder Brothers. He had a room there. And I said, Abba, the brethren, they're showing me that Haile Selassie is God, you know, with the King of Kings and Psalm 87, you know, this man was born in Ethiopia. And Abba, he just said to me, he just showed me Christ. But for me, I didn't know who Christ was because I had a belief in God, as I said, but who was Christ? And Abba started explaining to me, and it sort of made sense, you know. And but the thing is, when I was given the name Amde Mariam, if you remember back in those days, nearly every Sunday was mass baptism. Rasta come from Birmingham, all over, you know. So I was telling, you know, my mom, my dad, everybody said, me no name like, well, the family name like Junior, that's my pet name. And said, my name is Amde Mariam. And my mother said, we are talking about why. I said, you know, yeah. But when I was trying to evangelize the church, everybody, it's just my locks. They were looking at my locks. So my locks became like an impediment to evangelizing the church. Because they say, oh, the Rasta, I want to do at the church. We want to smoke ganja at the church and this and that. And because I saw it was an impediment and that God has done his work with the locks by bringing me to his church, you know, then I went to Abba and I asked Abba to cut my locks, you know, which he did. And then it was shortly after that he appointed me as a lay preacher, because I remember the first Sunday that I preached in the church, you know. And afterwards, I went to greet the elder brother at whose house he was staying. And the brother said, well, if you're there in Jamaica, man, just deep to you. You know what I mean? So, you see, I said, you see, you don't know what Rasta is about. Rasta is about peace and love. And he was sort of preaching violence. So, yeah, that was...
So did you find that having to explain to your mother and father that you're a new person, your outlook is of a different dimension, and Africa actually plays a major role in your thought process, and did you find that you had quite a struggle with that? Because I think most
no, not with my mum. You see, my mum was a very conscious woman. I think she's the one who instilled certain cultural and political views in me, not sitting me down, but by things that she would say. And she would say yes. She'd say yes. She liked my locks, you know, and I was in the church. Because she said when I was a baby, I had long hair. She used to plait my hair long and thing, and people used to think I was a Indian baby and this and that. But my dad, I say, is a man of few words. He's very skeptical, but I don't think he was too happy, because I remember meeting him on Clapham High Street, and you know my locks were flashing, and I said these were real dreadlocks. Because I tell you, one time they even scared me, but I won't go into that. And he was just looking around, you know, seeing if anybody saw me talking to him. So he wasn't. But I say, my mum is the one. She was more conscious in that way. She was glad and she was happy. You know, she was happy for me, because I said she started attending church when we was at Clapham North. I think we've got photos, you know, her in church and coming to baptisms and so forth, you know.
Yeah, thank you for that, Amde. Now, do you actually remember the day you got baptized? What was that like? The actual day itself.
Yeah, that was a wonderful, a glorious day, because I think I got sort of a white kind of Tafari suit made, you know. And I actually got baptized with two of my sons, you see, at the time. You know, I was baptized with the locks, but you know, so I was it's a very emotional time for me, that was, because I more or less just waited a whole year before I got baptized. Because I attended in '76, and it wasn't until '77 I was baptized. So I wanted to get into the teaching, so I was getting in, attending the Bible class. You know, I was buying up a lot of books. So I stopped buying up um, vinyl LPs, and now just buying books. Marcus Garvey, Philosophy and Opinions, you know, Rogers, Sex and Race, and the first one was His Majesty's autobiography. Because when the brethren, they were showing me that he was God, and I discovered that he'd actually written an autobiography, I said, well, I've got to buy it. But at that time, I think it was about £10, but £10 in them days was like a lot of money, like, you know. And I bought it. I said, if this man is God and he's written an autobiography, then he's going to reveal himself in there. And he just showed that he was just another normal man, another king of Ethiopia, you know. So, yeah.
Okay, well, that concludes the questions and the first part of this talk show, and I would like to now take you on to the second part. For my viewers, as a reminder, the second part is basically my guest Amde Mariam has selected 3 photographs from his archive, and he will be sharing his thoughts and the reasons why he selected each photo. So if we could start off with photo number 1, Amde Mariam, please.
Well, photo number 1 is actually our wedding in 1980 at our church, when we was at Bromyard Avenue in Acton, and obviously on it you can probably just see Deacon Hapti Selassie Stephen, and just out of shot you catch the back of the head of our father Liko Branat George's. But it's not just because it's this year will be our 40th wedding anniversary, but I think ours was the first wedding. I think it was the first and only wedding at Bromyard Avenue, you know, where we had the church on lease. And you see certain other faces in the background, but also the photographer. He wasn't the photographer that I was originally going to book. He was like the substitute, a younger friend, a younger brother of a friend of mine, but he was very nervous when he came in to the church, and I think the church can have that effect on people who've never been to our church before. You know, seeing the altar, the icons, and you know, and so forth. You know, so. And I remember having to say to him, "Hey, listen, you can take picture, you know, you can," because as he was reluctant to really take any photos, you know. But I say that was Bromyard Avenue, yeah.
Okay, so that has got special memories, and thanks for sharing that. I guess we will probably get to see a young version of of some of our members back then. Yeah,
Yes.
thanks. And moving on to the second picture, why did you select that one? What was the reason?
Yeah, well, it's a group photo of with our late patriarch Abuna Paulus when he visited our church in '92. because one of the positions I had in the church was also the church's official photographer. So on his visits, I was going around everywhere they went. I was basically there on the visit, taking photographs and being able to interact with the delegation and His Holiness, you know. And this group photo again, it's a shot with him in the center, and it's just showing again a lot of him being surrounded by a lot of the membership. Again, you'll be able to pick out a lot of the members who were younger, obviously at that time, you know. But I just think it all shows that he was a loving father, you know. So yeah, and it bring back a lot of memories. Some good, some not so good, because as you know, his visit was somewhat controversial, and there was some opposition to his visit. But in general, you know, and it shows him again. He felt at home in Saint Mary of Tserha, because again, I remember they really enjoy the duality of the service being in American English and Geese, and so, you know, they were really impressed with us. God rest his soul, you know.
Well, yeah, you mentioned that the visits of His Holiness, the late Patriarch Paulus, yes, it was very memorable. You said you was the church's photographer. I was very busy with the video recorder, so you know, I ended up taking quite a few videos. But I've always thought about these photos at on that occasion. I don't know if you recollect, but at that time I was responsible for taking the Patriarch and three archbishops straight after Cadaci, and my car was actually vandalized. You know, they broke the window, but you know, I kept driving. I'm just wondering if you do have some photos like of that occasion, if you could probably put them to one side.
Yes,
I'm sure it'll be a good viewing for our membership and community.
Yes, most definitely. Yes, I will be doing that, and I've spoken to the multimedia before, because hopefully all those historical photos, you know, will be on the church's website, so that, you know, members or other people could actually purchase them. But that's something, you know, I say we'll, for the future, with the multimedia committee.
Amde Mariam, I would like to thank you for sharing your life's journey and the two photographs with our listeners. No doubt this has got the potential to be viewed by, you know, nationally and even internationally with viewers. Who knows, you might even find yourself being a minor celebrity from now on. I wish you and your family the best, and that you've have many more years of service to give to Saint Mary of Tserha.
Yes, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure reminiscing and going through this history. And I said, certain things came back to mind that I'd actually forgotten about. I just hope it helps to inspire some of our viewers, your viewers, or listeners, you know, to really get involved in working for Saint Mary of Tserha and building the church and spreading the love and the unity, you know, in our Lord, to infect the whole of this society, especially in this time, you know, and in this Western hemisphere, where this virus is turning a lot of people's minds towards God, even in the mass media now, talking about God. So I think this is why God has allowed this situation to arise, because previously they were talking about Darwinianism, you know, and evolution and this and that, and now they're starting to talk about God more and realizing that there's more to life than meets the eye. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amde. Okay. Well, we have come to the end of the show, and it's been a most enlightening experience, and I hope you, my listeners, will feel the same. I can only thank God for allowing such an opportunity and for our members to feel part of your sharing of your life journey. For the next talk show, I will be having other guests, possibly 2 lined up on one show. So make Friday 7 p.m. to 7:45 a regular time slot. Well, don't forget it's once fortnightly. So you can get to know a bit more about our members, those who we are regularly in a conversation with, but just briefly. Look out for reminders and announcements for the show. If you would like to come onto the show and share your life's journey, the email address will be on the screen at the end of the program. Also, to get you involved, we are thinking of some names. Maybe you might have a name for the talk show. Again, you can. We'll be having a poll on Facebook. So again, look out for the information coming in. Okay. Don't forget though to click the like button and subscribe. I would like to thank the Multimedia Committee for the production of this show. And this is Welde Amanu'el saying good night, sleep well, and glory be to the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, both now and ever, and world without end. Savat Lab, Savat Ruol, Savat Lemon Frescadus, he is and he was at Vanilla. Amen.
Amen.